My name is Rees. I've spent much of my career meeting men and women called terrorists in the West. It used to be said that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. But after 9/11, that seemed to change.
Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists.
Western politicians list dozens of terrorist organizations. I'll be breaking bread with those labeled terrorists by the West and ask, when does a man have the right to fight without being called a terrorist? The tribal areas of Pakistan, the front line of the West's war on terror. For outsiders, it's one of the most dangerous places on earth. At a secret location, a rare interview with a senior Taliban commander. These men believe their duty is to expel Western armies from nearby Afghanistan.
If you follow the right path, you are my brother. But if you follow Bush, you will face suicide attacks. We will run you over with a vehicle. We will chop off your head. I will even sacrifice myself.
Pakistan is a nation on the edge of a precipice and the cornerstone of the West's war on terror.
The specter of having 166 million who fall to extremism, that seems to indicate to me that all of South Asia could be ablaze.
I'll go to the birthplace of modern jihad and find a country at war with itself. Pakistan is a nuclear power with an unstable government. According to the West, it is also home to the leadership of Al-Qaeda. After 9/11, the United States told the Pakistan government that it must play a pivotal role in the West's war on terror. But this is deeply unpopular amongst the people of this conservative Muslim nation. I'm heading for the western reaches of Pakistan, the northwest frontier. We're on our way to Peshawar, a town on the frontier with Afghanistan. It's also on the front line of the West's war on terror and a staging post for the rebellion against Western forces in Afghanistan. The frontier province is the home of the Pashtun people. For centuries, they've battled invaders who tried to control their lands. Peshawar and its people have been shaped by this violence. The Persians, Mongols, Sikhs, and the British have all occupied the city. The province is in turmoil once again and facing a different kind of invasion. The Pakistan government has sent thousands of troops into Pashtun lands to confront Islamist rebels. On the outskirts of Peshawar is one of the largest religious schools in Pakistan. The pupils are known as Taliban, the Arabic word for a student of Islam. It's presented by much of the Western media as a factory for terrorists. I first came to the Jamia Haqqana Madrasa in 1988, when it was at the center of the call for a liberation struggle, Jihad, against the Russian occupation of neighboring Afghanistan. Money from around the world funded holy warriors or mujahideen from this school. They crossed the border to expel Soviet troops. In those days, I dressed as a mujahid and, along with most Western journalists, celebrated the right of tribal warriors to fight foreign invaders. They were lauded as freedom fighters. The school was also at the center of the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan in 1995. Many senior members of the former Taliban government were pupils here, including its fugitive leader, Mullah Omar. I've come to see one of Pakistan's most experienced religious politicians, who's also known as the father of the Taliban. Sami-ul Haq recalled our meeting in the 1980s and how the West's attitude to the Mujahideen has changed.
We ask America,
What's the difference between the situation then and now? Then, everything was legitimate according to you. It was a war of freedom. Now you call it terrorism. If this is terrorism, then there would be no way for oppressed and subjugated nations to fight for their freedom.
The West's proxy war in Afghanistan fostered a belief that given faith and commitment, a group of poorly armed men could defeat a superpower. It has inspired the region, whose people found a new confidence in their religion and identity. At a nearby restaurant, I went to see an old friend, Rahimullah Yousafzai. We recalled our first meeting in 1988. But the first card I ever put in there was your card. He's one of the most respected journalists in the tribal areas and conducted the last known interview with Osama bin Laden. He's taking me back to a district of Peshawar where 20 years ago he told me an important story was unfolding. At the time I ignored his advice. It involved the founders of what would become Al-Qaeda.
Here there was a place on the left, which was one of the places used by the Arabs. And I'm sure Osama bin Laden, Abdullah Azam, Ayman al-Zawahiri, everybody has been here to this place.
Well, when I went there, of course, I discussed it, and we said nothing important was going on there.
Well, nothing important outside, but inside.
Well, yeah, but it didn't seem. We missed the importance of the idea of jihad, how potent that was, and how its effect would linger for so long. You know, I mean, we just missed it.
Yeah, that's true.
In these houses, Rahimullah met fighters from around the world, all brought together by jihad against the Soviet Union.
They would come here on the way to Afghanistan, stay here for a while, and then also the guys who had already fought in Afghanistan or trained, on the way back they would stop here and stay here. This was like, you know, for rest and recreation.
The ideas born behind these gates apply today against a different enemy.
There is now a new generation of fighters who are willing to die for Islam and for their homeland. And these guys, you can call them Taliban, militants, you know, Al-Qaeda, whatever. But these people are going to stay here. They won't go away. They won't give up.
At the far side of town, a border crossing on the road to the Afghan capital, Kabul. It's a vital transit route for NATO forces fighting the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. On the other side of the border, some 100 kilometers away, the United States Army has stationed troops in the desolate Korangal Valley.
Make sure that you're actually looking and scanning to identify weapons or them carrying stuff. Don't just try to shoot somebody because you see them, a group of dudes walking.
I'm joining 30 US troops at an isolated base on the front line of this war, Firebase Vegas. There are reports that Taliban forces are in the area.
40 individuals is what the report's saying, staging for one of the bigger attacks on Firebase Vegas. So it's going to be important that everybody's on their game this morning. Let's go. Oh, we're just getting spaced out, so in the event that we do get hit, we're not all in one area.
Sergeant Martinez and his men are joined by soldiers from the Afghan army. They set off on daily patrols in search of Taliban militants. Their main task is to cut off supply lines for fighters and weapons brought in from Pakistan. The border is only 20 kilometers away. This is dangerous work. These patrols act as bait, designed to draw the Taliban from their hideouts. The terrain is also ideal for guerrilla warfare.
They're just kind of watching for that one vulnerable individual or one point in the terrain, and they'll just let off a few rounds and try to ambush us and take off.
The soldiers arrive at a village. Houses are searched for weapons. The villagers are suspected of supporting the Taliban. These are the same Pashtun people as in the tribal areas of Pakistan. They share a language and culture. The border means little to the people here. While there is no Pashtun nation on a map, the people are fiercely proud of their identity. They see outsiders on their land as an insult to their honor. This man returned to his village after being in jail for 2 years, accused of being a Taliban fighter. He now says he no longer cares about politics. The presence of children in the village is a good sign for the patrol.
The last report we received was they were going to try to move the kids out of the area, so they move the kids out. They move all the children
before an
out.
attack.
Right before an attack, so that way, once we start shooting back, we're not going to injure any children. That's if they coordinate it well with the elders. If not, you see how easy it is. Some individual can come down here, shoot at us from the top of this house and take off. And where are we returning fire to? The top of this house.
Suddenly, the patrol receives reports of Taliban spotters watching them in the tree line. So you think they're watching us?
Oh, definitely. They already know we're here. So we don't want to stay in one area. We want to stay static so that way, they can't fix us.
The platoon's tour of duty will last for a further 6 months, but the US involvement in Afghanistan will be much longer. Do you see an end game to the war on terror here?
Honestly, I think we're going to have to get to the people that live here. But if we have insurgents continuously coming in the valley and bringing weapons and all kinds of stuff in here, it's not going to end. So we definitely need the villagers that live here or the Korangalis that live here in the
to be on
your
side.
To be on our side. We're not asking them to fight. We're asking them to tell us when these guys are coming.
But that's not happening, is it?
That's definitely not happening. So that makes our jobs a lot harder.
Next, I'll speak to the militants crossing the border to fight the Americans and examine how the West's war on terror is causing turmoil in Pakistan.